While a lot of people have been watching the auto loan market, the real financial bomb just went off, and it went off right in your wallet. We've officially blown past a new all-time record for credit card debt. But the number itself, that's not even the scariest part. What we're really seeing is a credit score contagion, where problems in student and auto loans are pushing millions of households into a high-interest trap that's getting almost impossible to escape. And this trap is set to spring in 2026.
So, here's the game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to get our heads around the massive scale of this trillion-dollar problem. Then, we'll break down the sneaky math of the minimum payment trap. After that, we'll look at how all these different debts are squeezing consumers at once. We'll even touch on a wild-card policy proposal that could change everything. And finally, we'll finish with a clear, actionable playbook you can use to protect yourself.
All right, first things first. We have to understand just how big this situation has become. This isn't just business as usual. To really get why this is a trap, you have to appreciate the sheer size of the hole we're in. And trust me, the numbers, well, they're historic.
So here it is, the big one. As of the end of 2025, total credit card debt in the U.S. smashed a new record, $1.28 trillion. Let that sink in for a second. The New York Fed has been keeping track of this since 1999, and they have never, ever seen a number that high.
But the total number is only half the story. The real shocker here is the speed. I mean, look at this. This isn't some slow and steady climb. Since the debt hit its low point back in early 2021, it has absolutely exploded by a staggering 66%. That tells you one thing loud and clear. People are relying on plastic just to make ends meet.
Okay, so $1 trillion is a crazy, abstract number. What does it actually mean for real people? Well, it breaks down like this. The average person who's actually carrying a balance is looking at over $6,500, and if you zoom out to the average household, that number jumps to over $9,000. That is the personal story behind the national headline.
Okay, so we've got these huge numbers, but a big balance isn't even the most dangerous part. No, what makes this a real trap is a specific little feature baked right into the system, and it's called the minimum payment trap.
So what is that exactly? Well, it's pretty simple and kind of devious. That minimum payment on your statement is designed to do two things. First, keep your account in good standing. But second, and this is the absolute key, it's calculated to maximize the interest you pay over the long haul. You feel like you're handling your debt, but in reality, you're just treading water.
And here is where the math gets just brutal. Let's take that average household with about $9,000 in debt. If they only make minimum payments, it's going to take them, get this, around 18 years to pay it off. And over those 18 years, they'll pay about $13,500 in interest alone. Yeah, you heard that right. You end up paying way more in interest than you originally borrowed. At that point, it's not debt anymore. It's a financial prison.
And you're probably thinking, wait a second, didn't the Fed cut rates? And yeah, you're right, they did. But here is the lie in the data. Look at these numbers. The average APR for people actually carrying a balance is still a soul-crushing 22.3%. And for new offers, they're getting close to 24%. The banks simply didn't pass the savings on to you, they just widened their own profit margins. And this quote here from Ted Rossman over at Bankrate just nails it. He basically says, whether the rate is 21, 20, or 19%, who cares? They're all incredibly high rates. So if your strategy is to wait for the Fed to ride in and save you, well, you're going to be waiting a long, long time.
All right, so let's zoom out a little. Because this whole credit card crisis, it isn't happening in a bubble. Not at all. It's colliding head-on with other huge debts, and that collision is creating this incredible squeeze on American households.
I mean, just think about it from a practical standpoint. You have to have a car to get to work. You have to pay your student loans. These are near essentials. So when the budget gets tight, what do people do? They make sure the car payment gets made so they can keep their job, and then they put the groceries on a credit card, charging over 20% interest. That's the very definition of a financial death spiral. And this chart, this is where we can actually see that credit score contagion taking hold. This shows you how many people are falling seriously behind on their payments. Credit cards are bad, auto loans are rising, but just look at student loans. After the payment pause ended, the delinquency rate just shot up to over 16%. That's millions of people whose credit scores are getting torched, making every other kind of borrowing more expensive or maybe even impossible.
And it doesn't stop there. Delinquencies on subprime auto loans, that's loans to borrowers with weaker credit, have hit 6.18%. That is an all-time record high.
It's like a five-alarm fire in a really important part of the economy, and it tells you that the most financially vulnerable people are in deep, deep trouble.
And hey, if you think this is just a low-income problem, think again. It's not. Take a look at Washington State, home to tons of high-paying tech jobs. Even there, the average credit card debt jumped almost 12% in a single year. That just goes to show you that the cost of living squeeze is real, and it is hitting almost everyone. So, with a crisis this big, you know Washington is going to start paying attention. And that brings us to the biggest policy wildcard that could completely change the game. There's a proposal floating around to cap all credit card interest rates at 10%. Now, there are two very different ways to look at this. The upside could be massive for consumers. We're talking savings of about $100 billion a year. But the downside? Well, the banks are warning it would trigger a severe credit crunch, forcing them to cut off access to credit for millions of people they see as risky.
And here's the argument from the industry side coming from JP Morgan's CEO, Jamie Dimon. He says that the very people who need credit the most would be the first ones to lose it. The big fear is that this kind of policy would backfire and hurt the exact people it's designed to help.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem, the mechanics, the politics, the whole shebang. Now for the most important part. What can you actually do about all this? Let's build your financial playbook for 2026. Now, there's a unique opportunity on the horizon. Because of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, many people are going to get a pretty big one-time tax refund this spring. This is a rare chance, a moment of liquidity that you can use to make a real dent in that high-interest debt. It's so important to think of this as a personal bailout, not a bonus for a shopping spree.
So here's a simple four-step game plan. Number 1, and this is the most critical, escape the trap. You have to pay more than the minimum. Every single extra dollar you send goes straight to the principal and saves you a ton in the long run. 2, cut and budget. You have to know where your money is going. 3, if your credit is still in good shape, hunt for a 0% APR balance transfer card. It's like hitting a pause button on interest charges. And finally, number 4, look into a debt consolidation loan. You might be able to roll everything into one payment at a much more manageable rate.
And that really brings us to the bottom line. We are facing this perfect storm of record debt, interest rates that just won't come down, and huge political question marks. The system is tightening. So the crucial question you need to be asking yourself is your own personal balance sheet ready for what's coming?